What's the funniest way you've been unprepared for something? When I accepted a job teaching English in Japan, I thought I knew enough about Japanese culture from watching anime. I was about to learn how wrong I was in the most embarrassing way possible. I grew up obsessed with anime and manga, so when I landed a position teaching English in rural Japan, I figured I'd fit right in. Sure, my Japanese was limited to phrases I'd picked up from cartoons, but how hard could it really be? My first warning sign came during orientation. The program coordinator, Mrs. Tanaka, asked if I had formal clothes for important ceremonies. I confidently showed her my traditional outfit, a bright orange kimono I'd bought at an anime convention. Her face went completely blank. "That's a costume," she said carefully, "and it's meant for festivals, not formal occasions." I laughed it off, but inside I was panicking. The school ceremony was in 2 days, and I had nothing appropriate to wear. That night I frantically searched online for proper attire, but everything would take weeks to ship. I ended up borrowing an ill-fitting suit from another teacher that made me look like a kid playing dress-up in their parents' clothes. But the real disaster came during my first actual class. I walked in confidently, ready to wow my students with my cultural knowledge. I greeted them with what I thought was a formal hello in Japanese, a phrase I'd heard countless times in anime. The entire class erupted in laughter. Even the usually stoic Mrs. Tanaka had to cover her mouth. Turns out, I'd used an extremely casual phrase typically only used by teenage Yakuza characters. I'd essentially walked into my first class and greeted my students like a cartoon gangster. Red-faced, I tried to recover by writing some basic English phrases on the board. That's when I noticed my students looking increasingly confused and uncomfortable. Mrs. Tanaka finally pulled me aside and whispered that I was holding the chalk completely wrong. Apparently, there's a proper way to write on blackboards in Japan, and I was doing it like a kindergartner. Things got worse at lunch. I brought my own chopsticks, bright red with little anime characters on them. When I stabbed my rice to keep it in place, like I'd seen in shows, you'd think I'd committed a crime. Mrs. Tanaka quickly explained that sticking chopsticks straight up in rice is only done at funerals. The final straw came during the afternoon cleanup. In Japan, students clean their own classrooms. I thought I'd impress everyone by helping out, but I wore my outdoor shoes into the classroom. A massive cultural faux pas. The horrified gasps from my students made me want to disappear. That evening, Mrs. Tanaka invited me to her office. I was sure I was about to be fired. Instead, she sat me down with a cup of green tea and said something I'll never forget. "Your enthusiasm is admirable, but Japan isn't like your cartoons. Would you like to learn the real way?" For the next month, she spent every afternoon teaching me proper etiquette, basic phrases, and cultural norms. She even took me shopping for appropriate clothes and showed me how to properly use chopsticks. The students, seeing me genuinely trying to learn, started helping too. They taught me proper greetings, correct chalk-holding techniques, and even helped me practice my horrible pronunciation. One student, Kenji, made me flashcards with common phrases and their actual uses, not their anime versions. 6 months later, during the school festival, I overheard some students talking to Mrs. Tanaka. "Remember when Mr. Thompson tried to greet us like a Yakuza boss?" One laughed. "Now he speaks better Japanese than my grandfather." Mrs. Tanaka smiled and said something that made me realize how far I'd come. "Yes, but remember, he was brave enough to learn from his mistakes. That's a lesson more valuable than perfect Japanese." I still have those ridiculous anime chopsticks. They're framed on my wall next to my teaching certificate, reminding me that sometimes being completely unprepared can lead to the best learning experiences.